It's Motivation Monday, a new week. A fresh start and another opportunity to level up. This is your moment to reset your mindset, refocus your energy, and realign with your purpose. Whatever didn't work last week, that's done. Today you move differently, stronger, smarter, more disciplined, because growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure, consistency, and showing up when it's hard. No excuses, no distractions, just elevation. The grind starts now, the discipline kicks in today. And the results, that's on you. Every move you make this week is building something bigger. So set the tone today, or spend the rest of the week trying to catch up. Because every Monday is a chance to rewrite your story, to step into a new version of yourself. This isn't just another week. This is your rebirth, Motivation Monday, powered by the Final Boss.
Welcome to Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday, man. It is Motivation Monday. And what does that mean? That means that it is time to get on board the what? The fired up train, man. It is time to get on board the fired up train. Listen, to each and every single one of you, thank you for joining us, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Look, man, I got a couple people in the building already. They beat me here. Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all, man. Smarts, motivators, warriors, final bosses. Look, man. We're coming to an end of this arc. We're going to get into that. Right? We're going to get into that. But you know what, man? Before we get started, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, man. Go get Go Time all aboard the fired up train. Go get Go Time all aboard the fired up train, man. This is probably, I got two, I can't tell you, but it's coming out soon. Go Time 2 is on its way. Go Time 2, it's on its way, right? Super excited about that, man. Look, if you have not already, go on our website, man. Go on our website and download or see all of our episodes, right? Go see all of our episodes, right? And the link is thefinalbosspodcast.com, right? Thefinalbosspodcast.com, man. What's up, Jax? What's up? Okay, fella, I see you. Dang, bro, you got the witch laugh. Oh, man. I've been told, bro. Hey, Chikati, I see you. We got some good folks in here tonight, man. Listen, go see and go look, man. Go see. That caught me off guard. Was not expecting that from my man. Okay, fella, I appreciate you. Look, go to our website at thefinalbosspodcast.com, all one word. You can see all of our episodes, 268 episodes. After tonight, it'll be 269, man. Go watch all of our episodes, man, so you can get caught up, right? Because we're in season 4, the rebirth, arc 4, the end of arc 4. We got 2 more episodes, including tonight. So tonight, and then another night, and then we're going into arc 5, the declaration. And then from there, it's high rolling time, man. We're going to season 5, the harvest, right? The harvest, man. Look, man, we are almost at the harvest. I'm so excited, man. The harvest season 5 is on its way. But look, if you haven't, like I said, go get Go Time all aboard the fired up train. It's our first book. Second book is dropping very soon. Second book is dropping next month. Then from there, I need you guys, right? You want to be a part of the town hall? Send your questions, answers, concerns to the email at info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's our email, man. Get your questions and concerns in, man. And if you have any answers that you would like to convey to the rest of the show, and I could bring them on board on the town hall, man, because we do town halls every now and again on a Thursday when we don't have a special guest. So get those in. Get those in, man. Send those emails in. We're getting a ton, right? A shit ton, I should say, right? A shit ton, as I should say, of emails, right? So you want yours to be a part of the town hall? Send it in, man. Send it in. Send your answers, your questions, and your concerns in so we can get you on board, man, inside of the town hall. And right now, hold on. Let me see something. Right? Let me calculate something real quick. So we got that out the way, right? We got that out of the way. And our daily greeting of the day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is for entertainment purposes only, and we are about to get on board the fired up train, man. The fired up train. Listen, man. You know, there's a certain energy that comes with Motivation Monday. I don't know what it is, man, but Motivation Monday just, man, it gets me going, right? It's provocative. Right? It's provocative. Listen, man. As we get ready to close out, man, I'm so excited, man. We're closing out Arc 4 very soon, right? Arc 5 starts at episode number 271. Tonight's episode is 269. And what we're going to be talking about, we've been talking about the construction, this entire arc, right? The construction of you, the construction of whatever you're building. And tonight we're going to be talking about the blueprint is built. Now it's time to sign it, right? And that means accountability, right? So that means accountability, right? So this is, man, look, I can't say it enough, man. This is the second to last episode, right? And before we get into tonight's episode, I need you guys to understand something, right? Look, you've been here with me. Oh, let me get rid of the banners. Thank you for that. My man Steve is always in the building. Thank you, Steve. I got you, bro. Appreciate you. Look, you've spent months with me. We've been on this journey together, right? We're on this journey together. Find the Boss Podcast, Find the Boss Nation, Find the Boss Family, Final Boss Community. We're all on this journey together as we build, right? And right, this arc has been about building. This was the construction arc, right? And you know what? You spent months with me during the construction phase. You poured the foundation, you framed the walls, you ran the wire, you did the work that nobody saw. There was no applauses at the end. What's up, player? What's going on? Serve accidental curses. I see you. Thank you for joining us, man. That's a crazy name. Thank you. I love it, right? Look, man, you poured the foundation. You framed the walls. You ran the wire. You did the work. Nobody saw it. And there was no applause. There was no celebration at the end of it, right? Nobody clapped for you. Nobody posted about what you were building, right? And now you're standing in the doorway of what you built, right? But you won't go in. And you won't go in, right? And you won't go in because of this very thing, right? Because signing your name to it means you own it, right? Birdman hand rub means you own it. The victories and the cracks, you own all of it. The vision and the gaps, you own all of it. So let me ask you something, right? Let me ask you something right now, right? Because the construction crew never asked this thing that I'm about to ask you out loud. I'm about to ask you, man, what are you waiting for? That's the question. What are you waiting for, right? What are you waiting for, right? So this is episode number 269, and we got one episode left in the construction before we start Arc 5, the declaration. And tonight, man, the only thing standing between when you've been, or where you've been, I should say, and where you're going is your signature. Right? So stop perfecting it. There's no time for perfection. Stop adjusting the angles, right? Stop measuring twice because you're afraid to cut once, right? That, my friends, is the blueprint in action that's being built. So, before we get into tonight's conversation, man, let's go ahead. Wait, hold on. I need my help. I need my cat. Oh, bro. Yikes. Can't help with that, man. I wish I could. Man. I'm a cat person. How you know I'm a cat person, man? Wait a minute. You ops? You do ops, bro? Yes, I love cats, man. I love cats, right? Everybody knows I love cats, man. Cats are phenomenal animals, right? So, brass tacks of the brass tacks comes from yours truly. Tonight's brass tacks is this. Most people don't fail because they didn't build it. They fail because they wouldn't claim it, right? They wouldn't claim it. I'm gonna say that again, right? Smarts, motivators, warriors, final bosses, get ready to take some notes. Here's the brass tacks again. Most people don't fail because they couldn't build it. They fail because they wouldn't claim it, right? They wouldn't claim it, right? So, smarts, final bosses, motivators, warriors. You know what time it is. It's Motivation Mondays, right? And if you've been riding with us through the entire arc of season 4, then you already feel it. You already feel that something is shifting or something has shifted, right? The atmosphere is different and tonight is no different. And that's not by accident. That's by design, right? We are inside arc 4 the construction, and this arc has been exactly what it sounds like. It hasn't been glamorous. There's been no applause. There's been no viral moments. Just foundation work, steel on steel, brick on brick, blueprint to reality execution. For weeks, we've been building, right? And this community has been in the build phase the entire time, pouring concrete in the dark, framing walls nobody could see yet, running systems before the lights got turned on, right? That is what construction is all about, right? And that is what this arc demanded. And if you did the work, if you did the work, then you know exactly what I mean. The calluses on your hands are real, right? They are a reminder of the work. The silence was necessary. The cost was documented. But here's what I need you to understand tonight, because the construction is not a permanent state. It's a phase, right? And what do phases do? Phases end, right? Builders build so they can occupy what they built. Nobody lays bricks forever. And at some point, the work stops and the claiming starts. And that's where we are, right? We got one more episode, man, left in this arc. Episode number 270 is tomorrow for Tech Tuesdays. Tune in at 9 p.m. for it, right? That will close out the construction, right? And that will open Arc 5, the declaration. And before we can even declare anything, before we can stand on the stage and announce what we built to the world, we have to do one thing that most people skip entirely, right? We have to sign it, right? We have to sign it, right? Look, tonight isn't about more construction, right? Tonight is about ownership. Tonight is about putting your name on the work, stepping through the door and declaring yourself the architect of what you built. Not after it's perfect, not after you fix the last thing. So let's lock in, man. Let's lock in. Let's get on board the fired up train, man. Smarts, we're going to break this down so the strategy is clear. Final bosses, we're going to own every inch of this. Motivators, we're going to light the fire that carries you through. And warriors, we're going to hold the line until declaration opens. Stay locked in, my friends. This episode is high voltage, man. Let's build. Let's go, right? So before we go any further, man, let's establish what we're actually talking about, right? What we're actually talking about, because sign the blueprint is not poetry for tonight. It's a directive, right? And like every directive on this show, it has specific meaning, a specific cost, and a specific consequence if you ignore it. For those who can't say specific and say Pacific, I get you. I understand. And it's okay, right? It's okay. I get it, right? Look, signing the blueprint means 3 things, right? And I need you to write these 3 things down. Class is in session, right? Number one, ownership without conditions. You stop putting asterisks next to your work. No more, I built this, but it still needs that, right? No, you built it, period, full stop, right? The caveats are for people who are afraid to be judged. Ownership without conditions is the first signature, right? And then number two, there's a public declaration of completion that needs to be made. This is not internal acknowledgement, but signing a blueprint is a public act. Architects don't sign the plans in a drawer. They sign them at the table with witnesses, right? Get you some witnesses, right? And there's a moment where you stop carrying your vision in your chest and you put it on the table, right? That moment right there is the signature, right? Warriors know this. They know what it costs. The exposure is real. Sign it anyway, right? And then point number three, right? Point number three, make sure you're writing these down, right? Acceptance of full ownership, right? The wins are yours. The gaps are yours. The version that isn't what you originally imagined is somehow better than you imagined, right? Look, man, I'm a testament. Trust me when I tell you this, right? It's better than you imagined, man. Seeing it come into fruition, seeing the tangible is so much better, right? The failure that taught you, I should say, the failure that taught you where the structural weaknesses were, they also are yours. Own them, right? Full authorship is not selective. It is total. And that is what the signature means, right? Because think of it like this. Most people get to step one and quit. They never make it to where you are. They never make it, right? Their approval, they never get to see it, right? They own it internally, but won't say it out loud. They know they built something real, but they'll wait for somebody else to confirm it before they can call it done. Listen, that's not sovereignty, right? We build over here without the acknowledgement, right? And that's approval addiction wearing construction hats, right? Smarts, listen up. The construction was always going to end. The only variable was whether you were going to walk out of the build phase as the builder or as a bystander watching somebody else take credit for your work. Tonight, we choose the builder. Tonight, we sign, right? Hold on. I need a break. Give me 1 second. Hold up. Ooh, boy. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, man. Sorry about that. Look. Whew. The fired up train needed some more coal. The fired up train needed some more coal. And look, I'm going to give you the listen, man. I'm gonna give you the cause confession early, right? I'm gonna give you the cause confession. I'm gonna give it to you early. I'm gonna give it to you right now. Sorry about that, right? So let's talk about real numbers. We're talking about real stakes because this is what we do on the Final Boss, right? We have the most difficult of conversations, man. We're gonna talk about it, and this isn't about motivation speech or having motivation speeches without receipts attached, right? Look, the construction arc cost me something specific, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it costs because gratitude language doesn't help anybody on the show, right? It cost me comfort. Oh boy, man, y'all have no idea. It cost me comfort, right? I did a lot of things in the last couple of years, man, and comfort was none of them, right? Comfort was none of it, and everything's been purposeful, right? And everything's been with intent. And there was a plan already in motion that was underneath it that I didn't even see, right? And that is not a news headline, man. That is a category of decision most people would never make because the pension, the title, and the certainty of the biweekly check are way too loud to hear when we're talking about a sovereign life and what a sovereign life sounds like underneath all of it, right? I had to turn the volume down on a lot of things, right? I had to hear my decisions clearly, right? It cost me, man. It cost me a lot, right? One of those variables that cost was time, right? Every hour I spent building SatDigiNet, building the doctoral research track for Capital Tech, building the 5 shows weekly podcast production machine, right? That was time that did not go somewhere else, right? And that's not actual math. That's an inspirational version of that math. And it's real, right? Time is the one non-renewable resource that any of us have. And I spent mine on a build on purpose, and I'm still building, right? It cost me approval, right? When you pivot in your 40s with the PhD program starting, or you're trying to run an IT firm or a podcast empire and full production, and and books on top of books, and becoming an Amazon bestseller, and people who knew you, they knew the old version. The people knew the old version of you, right? And now they're confused, right? That confusion is not your problem, though. That's not your problem to manage or soothe, right? But it does cost you the comfort of being easily understood by people who used to understand you instantly, right? You signed a blueprint anyway. You signed it. Put your signature on it, right? Right? Auto pen, right? Knowing that cost is real and permanent, and it costs relationships as well, right? I've lost a lot of relationships in the last couple of years, a lot of relationships, right? And it wasn't deliberate, man. It wasn't deliberate. We just start reading and talking on different frequencies, right? And here's the truth I need to put on the table, right? The thing I need every final boss, every warrior, every motivator, and every single smart in the community to hear clearly before we close the construction arc together, right? I built it. Yes, and that's not vanity. Yes, with God's assistance, of course, right? All of it. And I'm signing my name on it tonight in front of you on this broadcast, right? Right? I'm signing it. Talking about Turbotheceo, Dr. AI, the Sovereign, all 3 names, one man, 0 excuses. We talked about that last night, and that is what tonight's episode is actually for. Not just to deliver the message to you, but to model it in real time with my own name attached as the cost, because leadership on this show has never been do what I say. Leadership here is watch exactly what I do and match the standard I'm setting in front of you. Match it. Outdo it, right? Be better. So I need you to answer this honestly before we move to the next segment, right? What did the construction actually cost you? Think about it. What did it actually cost you? You need to know the number with precision before declaration opens in episode 271. I need you to count it. I need you to name it. I need you to name it specifically out loud if you have to, right? Don't minimize it. Don't minimize it down to something easier to carry. And don't inflate it either, right? Just tell the truth. Tell yourself the truth. It's time to be honest about what you built and what did the bill actually demand from your time, your relationships, your comfort, and your certainty. The cost, named honestly and completely, is the proof that the construction was real and that you're entitled to the signature you're about to put on it. It's time to sign it, right? It's time to get on this fired up train, man, right? And here's the thing that nobody talks about in personal development space, right? Like ever. Nobody talks about it, right? They would tell you how to build. That's a given. They would not tell you why builders avoid finishing what they started. Look, I'm going to tell you tonight because somebody has to say it out loud and nobody else on this platform seems willing to do so. So I would do it. Right? I'm going to take that responsibility to do it, right? Because there is a psychological architecture of that includes a whole internal system specifically designed to keep you in the construction phase forever. It masquerades as diligence. It disguises itself as high standards, right? It sounds on the surface exactly like wisdom, right? But underneath all of that language, it's avoidance holding a rolled up blueprint in its hand, right? And here's what the architecture looks like from the inside. Now, tell me if I'm wrong about this, right? Tell me if any of this sounds familiar to you right now. Listen, right? You hear to yourself saying, "Oh, I just need to fix one more thing," right? That's the first room in the avoidance architecture, right? The thing you need to fix never actually fixes the underlying problem. It only delays the signature one more time or one more cycle, right? Y'all have to come. Hey, listen, man. Y'all. All right, man. Look, y'all win. Y'all win, right? That was hilarious. Look, man. You have to fix that thing, right? And then there's another thing waiting behind that thing, and then you're behind something else. It's like your house never gets occupied because there's always something conveniently wrong. And it's always one more thing, right? And you're never ready, right? And you're going to always keep saying, "I'm not ready yet." Listen, that's the second room. And this one is a little bit quieter, right? It's a little quiet and far more convincing than the first because that feels like self-awareness. It feels like humility wearing a responsible face, but it's not, right? But readiness is not the destination you eventually arrive at any given point, right? Readiness is a decision that you make. So make the decision, right? Make the decision, right? Now, the people who waited until they felt like they were ready, right? In many cases, they've been waiting since before this arc even started. They've been waiting their whole life, right? And you don't need to get ready and then start. You start and the readiness assembles itself around that particular action, right? And look, there's another thing, man. Talking about I need more validation, right? That's the third room, right? And this one is a little bit more dangerous than the other three. This is the one that is more dangerous than of the three, right? Because it places your signature directly in someone else's hand instead of your own. You're waiting for the mentor to confirm it, the audience to grow to a certain number, the check to clear, the algorithm to reward the post with reach. It was never guaranteed. Look, man, none of those things were ever the actual signal you needed to move, right? So you need to get moving, right? You, my friend, are the signal. The only validation that matters in the end is the one you give yourself the moment you sign the blueprint and walk through the door without waiting for an escort to walk you in, right? Warriors, my warriors, where my warriors at, man? Where my warriors at, right? You know this architecture intimately, right? You've lived inside it. Every warrior has spent time in those rooms at some point in their life, sometime in their career, right? Whether the war was overseas or in a boardroom or in their household, the discipline isn't about being permanently immune to walking in. The discipline is recognized the moment you're standing inside of it again, right? And you're naming the room. You're in it and you're naming it by its real name, right? And you're getting yourself back out before it calcifies into something permanent, right? Like a permanent address that you mistake for a home, right? Now, you talk about exit avoidance architecture, man. We're going to be talking about it, right? While the message is still fresh from last night, right? While your ears are still ringing from last night's message, right? And while the energy is still high from last night's message, because the construction is finished, right? Stop renovating a house you have no intention of moving into. I'm on fire and I'm dropping gems. I'm on fire and I'm dropping gems. You heard me. Stop renovating a house you have no intention of moving into. Stop adding rooms to a structure you're scared to actually live in. Sign the blueprint and go occupy the work you already built with your own hands on your own time at your own cost. Look, man. Look, let's get on board the fired up train. Let's get on board the fired up train, right? And let's talk about the construction arc as we close it out completely, man. Let's close it out. And, declaration is coming in 2 days. Everything changes in tone and posture and expectation when it comes to the declaration and arc 5, right? And I need you to understand precisely what the declaration means, because if you have not signed the blueprint before the arc opens, you are going to walk into episode number 271 with absolutely nothing to declare. What are you declaring? What are you declaring, right? What did you build? What did you finish, right? Standing in front of the community empty-handed, man. That's what you are, right? While everybody else stands there with something real to name. I need you to name it. I need you to claim it, right? I need you to declare, right? Declaration is the arc where the work goes public in its finished form. Oh, what a beautiful time it is, man. What a beautiful time it is. This is where the vision gets announced instead of described, right? Where the builder becomes the occupant and the occupant becomes the spokesperson for what they built. You cannot declare a vision you have not even claimed. Man, listen, I'm on fire. I am on fire, man. Look, you cannot declare a vision you have not claimed. You can't do it. You can't announce a building you refuse to walk into. Declaration requires a signed blueprint as its entry fee. No exceptions, no discounts, no special arrangements, no special arrangements for the people who almost finish. We only dealing with finished folks, right? And this is exactly why tonight matters more than it might appear on the surface, right? Or at least on the calendar, right? Because if you've genuinely been through the construction phase and you know in your gut whether you have or whether you've been spectating on the sidelines, and a lot of you have been spectating. I know. I see you. You've been spectating, right? I see you. But tonight is the inflection point, right? Because tonight is where you decide whether you arrive at episode number 271 with a declaration fully loaded and ready to fire, or whether you arrive empty-handed because you spent the final episode of the construction still adjusting angles nobody but you can even see anymore. Stop the work, declare, right? We're done with the construction. We're done with it, right? Whatever's not done, hey, man, it didn't get done. Time to move on, right? And here's what I need every final boss in the community to sit with for a second before we move forward, right? Because declaration is not reserved only for the things you finish perfectly. Declaration is for the things you actually built in the actual conditions you had with the actual resources available to you, including the version that doesn't look exactly like your original version, right? Including the iteration that taught you something the original plan never could have taught you. Because the original plan was theoretical, and this version that we're speaking of is real, right? Look, man, entrepreneurs in this community who've been building in total silence, telling nobody what they're actually working on because the work felt too fragile to expose. That's who we're talking to in our community, right? That's who we're talking to, right? Because declaration is your arc. And it's coming faster than you think. The warriors who've been deep in the discipline phase without a single ounce of public acknowledgement, Declaration is your arc, right? And to my motivators who've been doing the internal work quietly and waiting for permission to call it real, declaration is your arc too, right? But none of you get to enter the arc without completing tonight's transaction first. And tonight, you sign the document, you sign the blueprint, you pick up your tools, you sign the final paperwork, and you hand over the keys to yourself, right? Tonight is the signing. The handover to the world happens in 2 episodes. Episode number 271. We got 2 episodes to go, right? Are you ready to sign? Are you ready to sign? Are you going to keep adjusting angles nobody else can see on a structure that's already been standing finished for weeks while you walk the circles around the outside, pretending there's still work to do, right? Let's get on board the fired up train. Let's get on board the fired up train, man, because here's something they don't teach you in a productivity course, right? Any business school program and any self-help framework I've ever come across in my many years of studying how people succeed, they teach you how to build. They do. They almost never teach you how to finish, right? Because finishing doesn't sell as well as the promise of building does, right? Finishing is completely separate skill from building. And most people who are naturally gifted builders are terrible finishers because the finish line requires something that building itself never requires. You know what that is? You got to surrender to completion. You have to surrender to completion with all the judgment that comes with it or attached to it, right? Because when you're in the middle of a build, when you're in the middle, you're in control. Every angle, every single day, you can add something. You can adjust something. You can improve something. You can tweak the angles one more degree, right? The work stays alive and in motion, and your hands stay on it constantly, right? That feels like progress, right? That feels like productivity. And for a season, you're talking about a real season, it genuinely is both of those things at the same time, right? But then there comes a point where continued building stops, full stop, where it stops being progress and becomes protection instead. You start protecting yourself from the verdict, from the judgment of what the thing actually is once you hold it up to the light and let other people see it clearly, right? Without your narration or something in the view for them to see. As long as it stays in progress, nobody can officially say it failed, including you. Including you. In the privacy of your own home, in the privacy of your own head, at those conversations that you have with yourself at 3 a.m. in the morning, when the doubt is really loud, right? And this is where the most common story in entrepreneurship repeated across every single industry I have ever seen or studied. Regardless of geography or market or generation, the course that has been in development for 3 years straight, the book that has almost been done for 18 months, right? The business that has been launching and stuck in launching soon since the last presidential administration was in office. It still has no actual launch date attached to the promise. I have personally watched brilliant people build elaborate, sophisticated, technically impressive structures. Entire businesses, manuscripts, training systems, certifications, methodologies, right? And then live entirely outside of them. Because finishing meant judging, and judging meant risking, right? And risking meant facing the real possibility of being wrong about themselves in front of the audience that had been watching the entire time, right? My smarts, they know this all too well, right? And smarts, this is your strategic read you need to take from this, right? And I need you to carry this on for the rest of the night, right? Because what you don't finish, you don't own. What you don't own, somebody else will eventually name on your behalf, according to their understanding of it, not yours. That is how legacies actually get hijacked in this world. Not usually through theft and in a dramatic sense, but through simple, repeated, justified delay, right? And what builders actually do at the end is precisely what they did at the beginning. They make a decision. The decision at the beginning is to start. The decision at the end is to stop. Not because you gave up on the vision, but because the work is genuinely done, right? Because you built exactly what you said you were going to build and how that structure exists and how it exists to serve a purpose greater than the act of building ever was, greater than even you. It's time to make that decision tonight, right where you're standing, right where you're sitting, right now, while this episode is on, while we're live, right? While I'm talking to you and you're listening through your own ears. Look, man, stop adjusting. It's done. Sign the blueprint. Sign the blueprint, right? Now, let's shift the lens for a moment, man. Let's get back on the fired up train, man, because everything I've said tonight up until this point is not just personal deployment language dressed up in a podcast, man. This is sovereign architecture, and it operates by rules, and rules that don't bend for comfort, right? Look, man, the sovereign, the third identity layer, the legacy umbrella, the architecture that everything else in my life eventually feeds into, the sovereign carries a standard that is completely non-negotiable when it comes to completion, right? There's no flexible interpretation of this standard, no situational exceptional clause, right? Sovereigns don't abandon their work. And that sounds obvious when you say it out loud, right? But let me define abandonment in sovereign terms specifically, right? Because it is it's not what most people assume, right? Abandonment is not quitting in a dramatic sense. Abandonment is finishing the construction completely and then refusing to occupy the structure you built. Why not build? Why not stand in it, right? You poured the foundation, you framed the walls, and you ran every system against the build. And now you're living in the parking lot outside of it, right? Telling yourself a story about why you haven't moved in yet, right? That is sovereign abandonment. And it is the single most common form of self-betrayal. I've seen it, right? I've seen it. And I've seen it inside high achieving people across every field I've studied. From military veterans to entrepreneurs to creatives to executives, the people in this community included. The fighting bosses, the warriors are not people who quit easily. They are people who build extraordinary, right? Genuinely impressive things and then underchange for them, right? Undervalue them, under announce them, and under occupy them once the building is done. The sovereign standard says this: every structure you build under your own name carries your full investment all the way to completion. And that means at the end of the build, you move in. It's time to move in, right? It's time to move in. You plant your flag inside of it. You tell the world exactly what it is, who built it, and what it's for. Because without hedging, the announcement to soften how it might be received. That is the standard. And look, that's the standard I hold to myself in the same way, right? And I'm asking you to hold the same standard for yourself, right? Look, man, look, I don't say these things for vanity. I'm using them as examples, right? Every business I built, man, every business I built, signed, and there was operating in the field right now, right? Podcast, I'm not going through the list, right? I'm not going through it. Right? The books, I'm not going through it, right? The schoolwork, I'm not going through it. You guys know. Look, man, I'm giving you examples. And these examples require the exact same transaction in the exact same order. Decision, build, sign, occupy. Never out of that sequence, right? Never skipping the signature to jump straight from the build to the occupy. Because that skips the part where you actually claim it. The sovereign standard has never been perfection. The sovereign standard is completion, and completion requires your signature before it counts as anything at all. Motivators, that standard is fully available to you right now, right now, tonight, not at some future point, right? But or a future point when you feel more ready for it. Not after the next milestone clears, not after the audience grows to a number that feels significant enough to justify the claim. The standard is available the moment you decide to stop waiting for permission that was never coming from anyone but you, right? Listen. Man, let's get on the fired up train, man. Next destination. Let's get on board. Let's get on board the fired up train. Look, I opened up this segment with a question, right? You remember the question because I told you to write it down, right? Because I need you to have set with that, right? And I asked you, what were you waiting for? You've been sitting with that question since the beginning, all right? And across the last several episodes during this entire construction arc, you might have been quietly building your answer to it, right? And the answer that explains reasonably and convincingly, right, why you aren't or haven't signed yet. Why the work is technically still in progress. Why declaration feels distant, even though episode 271 is sitting right there, 2 episodes away, and completely unmovable on the calendar, right? It's coming, right? It is coming. So I'm going to close that loop right now on this segment, right? Because that's what an open loop hook demands on the person who opened it, right? Whatever answer you built in your head over the last couple of minutes, whatever explanation felt more reasonable, more justified, more genuinely honest, I need you to sit down right now for the next 60 seconds and listen. 60 seconds, right? And listen, right? And not because the answer isn't real. It might be completely real, right? But the fear is real. The gap between the vision you had and the reality you produced is real. The awareness of everything you haven't figured out is real. And I'm not asking you to pretend otherwise. We only deal in honesty, right? Only deal in honesty. But here's what else is real, equally real, right? Sitting right alongside your honest explanation. Every single person who's ever signed their name to something significant had the exact same list of reasons sitting in their hand when they did it. The reasons to wait one more cycle. The evidence suggesting it wasn't fully ready. The internal report card with certain grades quietly circled in red. But they signed it anyway. Every single time, right? You signed it anyway. Every time you were able to sign a contract, you weren't ready to sign it, but you signed it anyway. The house you was buying, you weren't ready. The marriage, you weren't ready. The last relationship, you weren't ready. The car you just bought, you weren't ready. All of it. But you signed it anyway, right? You signed it anyway, every single time. And not because the reasons of the list were wrong or invalid, but because they understood something most people never get to. Because the signature is not a declaration of perfection. The signature is a declaration of authorship. And this is mine. I built this, right? Whatever it is and whatever you're signing for in that exact moment, complete or incomplete, exactly as planned or nothing like the original sketch that you had intended for. Own it. Be the author of it, fully and without qualification. Be the author of it, right? And that's the actual transaction. That is precisely what this episode is about. It has been demanding from you since the beginning, right? You've been in the construction for this entire arc. You have paid the cost, whatever the cost looked like specifically for you. You have learned things you generally did not know when you started this process. You have adjusted what needed adjusting along the way. You have built something real with your own hands and real conditions. Now it's time to close the loop. Sign it, right? Not tomorrow, Not when the last of the small things get fixed. Not when the audience finally hits a number that feels significant. Not when the mentor finally says the word you've been waiting on. I'm talking about tonight. I'm talking about right now. And whatever specific from a form of completion or completing whatever it is, looks what it looks like. I need you to say it out loud. Say it to somebody. Write it down. Send a text. Post it publicly. Make the phone call you've been avoiding. Go do the actual thing that constitutes your signature on your blueprint. The open loop opened in segment 1, and we closing it. Right? We're closing it. And whatever you were waiting on, or whatever you're waiting for, that you're still waiting on, you naming it out loud, and you're going to say it in front of the community, and we're going to close it, right? And I want to speak, and I want you to close it, man. I want you to close it. It is time to close, right? So let's get on board the fired up train for the next destination, right? Let's get on board the fired up train for the next destination, right? Because I want to give you a preview of what's to come, right? We're done talking about construction. We're done talking about blueprint, man. I want to give you a preview right now. And this is not a spoiler. This is a preview, right? The preview, the kind that prepares you instead of ruining. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, right? There's no spoiler alert, right? But look, Arc 5, the Declaration, is going to open up in 2 episodes, right? And I want you to understand precisely what that arc is architecturally designed to do for this community when it lands, right? So here it is. Think about this. Declaration is not about announcing that you're going to do something at some point, right? That's not what it's about. That's a different arc entirely. That phase happened a long time ago, right? Back at the start of this whole season. Declaration is about standing in front of what you've already built and what you've done in front of witnesses, and you're naming it out loud without hedging the language, right? The difference between those 2 things is enormous, and most people never separate them clearly enough to even notice, right? Look, a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to build a company. That's a statement of intention. Then there are people that say, I built the company and here it is. That, my friends, is a declaration, right? One happens before the work exists. The other happens because the work already exists, right? Declaration, the arc we're approaching is exclusively the second one, right? The latter, right? And when episode 271 opens, the expectation across the entire community is that every final boss listening has something concrete to stand in front of. Something they built during the construction, right? Something they named out loud, specifically, right? Without vague language. Now, and they did it in general, and they didn't do it in general terms, right? They said it with their chest, right? And it wasn't a pitch. It wasn't a pitch, but they did name it, right? And I want you to name yours, right? I want you to say, I built my financial discipline and I held steady for 6 months, right? I want you to say, I built my health back after I genuinely thought it was gone for good. I want you to say, I built the business infrastructure I had been avoiding for 2 solid years. I want you to say, I built the relationship with my kid that I almost lost completely. I want you to say, I built the skill set I always said I would get around to doing someday, right? Those are declarations, and those are real ones. Every single one of them requires a prior transaction, signing the blueprint, which is exactly what tonight's episode exists and why it happens tonight, right? Before declaration can even honor any of them properly, right? This is precisely why tonight's episode needs to be said, right? Because we're in the arc. We got 2 full episodes, right? Before we make the transition. And the real gets real, right? You need to sign. I need you to sign, right? Because tomorrow, we're going to consolidate everything, right? We're going to talk tech, but we're going to sign it, right? 271, you're going to stand up and you're going to declare it to the world. The sequence is intentional, built on purpose, not accidental in the slightest way, slightest shape or form, right? This is the construction of the construction. Construction of the construction, right? And this is how we close, right? Final bosses, if you genuinely don't know yet what you're going to declare at episode 271, tonight is the night to figure it out clearly. Not by building more, not by adding one more feature or to fixing one more flaw before you feel like it's comfortable and feel like it's fixed. By signing what you've already built exactly as it stands right now, by looking honestly at what you actually constructed over the last 30 episodes of this arc and calling it exactly what it is without minimizing it, by doing something smaller without inflating it to something that it isn't. We got 2 more episodes. Use every single hour up until those points and use them wisely, right? Because we're not going to wait. We're not going to wait, right? We're not going to wait for you to feel like you're ready. The calendar does not negotiate with nobody's timeline, including mine, right? So we're not waiting. Look, and the second uncomfortable verdict, right, of episode 269, right? And this one cuts a little deeper, right? Because waiting for the right moment is a sign of how genuinely good work ends becoming somebody else's story instead of your own, right? Now, let me explain. Because let me show you exactly how this plays out in real life, because it's not an abstract theory, right? This happens in real communities for real builders, people who deserved far better outcomes than the ones they actually got, right? Right? We talk about that all the time, man. Talk about person A, person B. Person A started the thing, person B finished the thing, right? Person A watches, person A completes, right? Person B encounters what person A started or actually has, and person B ends up signing it anyway, right? Look, man, you can't connect what you refuse to claim. If person A was doing what they were supposed to do, then person B would never have been able to come about and take what they had from them, right? And that's not a comfortable sentence, but it is an accurate one, right? This is not a hypothetical story I made up for the sake of the episode. This is a pattern that I see over and over again in many industries, creative fields, corporate environments, entire online communities. The unsigned blueprint gets named eventually by whoever has the courage to sign that first, regardless of who actually built it, right? You see it. You see it all the time, and you wonder how they did it. That's how it happens, right? Now, let's get on to the next destination, man. We're getting ready to close out. Right? We got 3 minutes. Man, I'm on fire, man. I'm hot. Who else hot? Man, drop the fire emoji in the chat right now if you hot, man. If you are hot and on fire, man, like I am, man, drop a fire emoji in the chat, man. Let's get on board the Fired Up train, man, for the next destination before we close out, right? Listen, we said it in the beginning, right? Right as we open, and we put it on the table early on purpose, right? So it would echo across everything that came after it. Because most people don't fail because they couldn't build it. They fail because they wouldn't claim it, right? That's not motivation line, man. That's designed to sound good on a graphic, right? That is a forensic autopsy of failure. The actual finding when you open up the story of every single person who had everything they needed to succeed and still somehow didn't. Not because they lacked the talent, not because they lacked the work ethic, not because the original idea was fundamentally wrong, but because the exact moment of completion, they chose invisibility over ownership. Every single time the choice presented itself, they could build, they wouldn't claim, right? That is the diagnosis, and it applies to more people in the community than any of us would like to admit, right? Tonight changes that, man. At least for some of us in the community, at least for the people locked in right now at 9 p.m. who have genuinely been in the construction for this entire arc and know exactly what I'm talking about because they have felt every single word of it personally, right? Smarts, you built the intelligence, you sign it tonight, deploy it without delay. Final boss, you built the entire infrastructure, the empire infrastructure, piece by piece, sign it tonight, occupy it fully, right? Motivators, you built the intentional engine that's been idling, sign it tonight, start the machine running, right? Warriors, you built the discipline under the real pressure, sign it tonight, go to war with it, right? Arc 5, the Declaration, opens in 2 episodes from tonight, episode number 271. You've got episode 270 tomorrow remaining to close out the construction arc completely. And then it's go time, baby. It's go time. Get on board the fired up train, man. It's go time. Not planning time, not building time, not adjusting time, declaration time with everything that word actually requires of you, right? I am Turbotheceo, the final boss. And this has been the Fighter Boss Podcast, Motivation Monday, episode number 269, Arc 4, Season 4, the rebirth, Arc 4, the construction, closing in on its final hour with 1 episode left after tonight before the arc shuts down, before the doors close completely. Before the doors close, right? The brass tacks in this earlier was never meant to just open the episode and disappear. It was meant to sit underneath every single segment that followed, quietly doing its work in the entire time. Whether you noticed it consciously or not, most people don't fail because they couldn't build it. They didn't. And ask yourself honestly, which half of that describes you? Did you build it? If the answer is yes, and for most of you listening right now, the answer is yes, then the only thing left standing between you and the next arc is second half of what I just said, right? The claiming, the signature, the willingness to stand behind your own work in public without an asterisk, without a disclaimer, without waiting one more cycle of permission that was never going to arrive from outside yourself anyway, right? That was tonight's episode. In front of the entire community, we signed, right? We signed, right? No more waiting on a feeling that was never going to arrive. No more circling to a building that wasn't complete, that was without flaw. Right? The blueprint is built. And right now, you named it, right? You named it. Look, man, you named it, right? All right, we're done. We're done. Every Monday night, I come to you with something. Sometimes it's a framework you can immediately hold on to. Sometimes it's a challenge designed to push you against exactly the place you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's a story from my own life that I haven't told anybody, right? And tonight I came with the directive, plain and direct, with nothing dressed up around it. The blueprint is built. I told you to sign it, right? I don't want to complicate things any further, right? I don't want to do that. I want to close the episode with absolute clarity, because clarity is exactly what this specific moment requires from both of us right now. All of us, I should say. You're not behind schedule. You're not too late to whatever timeline you've been measuring against yourself. You are not somehow excluded from the promise of declaration just because you can't point to a finished product that looks precisely like the original version or the original vision you sketched out months ago. You are exactly where a builder is supposed to be standing at the end of the construction, right in the doorway of what you built. Tools still in your hand, concrete dust still on your boots, looking directly at something real that simply did not exist before you made the decision to start building it anyway. That is not failure by any measure at all, by any honest measure, right? That is a genuine miracle, the kind most people never produce in an entire lifetime of trying. Everything you requires real courage from you. Every decision that costs you something you can't get back. Every night you kept going when the rationale for stopping was louder in your head than the rationale of continuing. None of that was wasted, regardless of how it might feel at this very moment. That is the actual foundation everything declaration is about to stand on. And we're standing 10 toes down. Right? The question in front of you is never whether what you built is good enough by some outside standard. But the real question, the only one that actually matters, is whether you are sovereign enough to put your own name on it without flinching. Without flinching. 3 names, 1 man, 0 excuses. I signed the blueprint a long time ago, and I'm standing inside the building right now, broadcasting to you from inside of what I built, inviting you every single day, 5 days a week, every single one of you, to do the exact same thing before this season moves any forward. Right? One signature is standing between where you are right now and where you're about to go. Sign the blueprint. Walk through the door you've been standing in front of and come on with us to the declaration. Come see the other side of things, right? There's nothing left to claim, right? Be ready to declare and declare it to the entire world without hedging a single word of it, right? Look, I'll be here tomorrow night, 9 p.m. And I'm here every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sundays, right? No exceptions. No matter what the calendar throws my way, I'm here. This has been the Final Boss Podcast. Episode number 269 is closed, signed, and delivered and on record. It is go time, and that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And if I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is our show. That is our show. And always, as always, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but there's even heavier pain that comes with regret. I am here. We are here. Be balanced, be equal, and be smart. That's our show for tonight. Y'all have a great one. See you again tomorrow night for episode number 270. The last episode of the construction arc, Arc 4. See you soon.
They thought it was over. They thought the fire burned out. But fire doesn't destroy the chosen. It forges them. Hosted by Turbotheceo. New energy, new strategy. Every setback builds strength. Every loss builds strategy. And every leader rises again. The rebirth begins. Season 4. Bigger conversations. Real strategy. Power moves only. Monday motivation. Tech Tuesday. Merger Wednesday. Special guest Thursdays, sit down Sundays. Season 4 starts now. Tap in or get left behind. Because bosses don't wait, they lead.